WWE's Night of Champions is in the books. It took place on Saturday night, or this past Saturday afternoon, I should say. We saw a popular faction look like they truly are on the brink of breaking up for real this time. We saw some championships change hands. We saw a newly crowned champion in the meantime. We saw two people who we know are going to keep fighting, and they just had the next chapter of the rivalry. And it all led to a Night of Champions, which was fine. It was fine. I have Ryan Page here, Daily DDT writer, wrestling commentator. What's up, Ryan?
How's it going, Matt? Yep, contributor, Daily DDT, and Last Word on Sports Pro Wrestling. There's two of them, so I have to make sure I mention them both.
Of
Uh,
course. Excellent, excellent stuff there, Ryan. Glad to have you as always. So you and I made some predictions on this match, or I should say this event, this
card,
premium
yeah,
live
the whole
event,
card.
the whole card. Now that it's done and in the books, tell me your initial thoughts of the event as a whole.
Well, first, I got all of them, which is impressive because if you've been following our wrestling crew, I've been atrocious at my Wrestlemania picks like the last 3 years. So I'm glad I was able to get 100% on these guesses today or Saturday rather. You said the show was fine. I think I rewatched the show
Yeah,
twice. I've seen the show twice. I actually thought the
I
show
think it
was
was fine.
good.
If it was
Um,
given out a, so if I do it out of 10, I'd give it a 6.
okay, I
And,
mean,
and off
that's
the
probably
bat, I would
right.
say the main event was really good, really, really good. I think Cody and Brock underachieved, but was fine. I thought Asuka and Bianca was good. I thought Becky and Trish was all over the place. I thought Rhea and Natalia, what a joke that was. And Gunther and Ali, he did that beatdown. That was fine. And then and then Seth and AJ was good. So
So it's
that's what
interesting.
I
I
would
actually
say
had a
there.
different. I had a different. I mean, going through them, I actually had a different thought. The main event was fine. I thought it was good. The ending of the
Yeah,
what happened at the end of the main event. The story of
made
the
it
main event
all.
was amazing. The match. I mean, Roman Reigns, for my money, has not been particularly entertaining in a professional wrestling ring for about a year and a half. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really care about Roman Reigns matches. Um, or the Usos for that matter. And I know some people disagree with that, but I think if we're being honest with ourselves, at this point, the bloodline is about the moments after or before the match. It is not about the
Yeah,
matches themselves. The matches are formulaic and a little boring, but it was a good bloodline match. You know, Sammy and Kevin, obviously very good. Roman is very good. This is not an indictment on any of their abilities to wrestle. It's just they've been booked to do the same thing for 3 years. It's
for sure.
boring.
And you mind if we
Um,
stick to the bloodline right here
sure, we'll
and then
stay
we'll
there
go
for
through
now.
there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, yes, bloodline match. That's something I told you right before we signed off in our preview. This has to end. It's getting dull, and especially the Sammy and KO aspect. They have
Mm-hmm.
to go to the legit tag team division and
Yeah,
defend it against, some tag teams that WWE has been criticized for having a weak tag team division, and it's improving mightily, and they got to now put that in there. They have to start that part of the rivalry. And if you, for some reason, even though I'm glad I was wrong, I thought they would give the titles back to the bloodline, then there is literally no point to have Sammy and KO team up as quote unquote a tag team. It's just for the story of the bloodline story, but it's nice to see them branch out, or at least so it seems, as we see them preparing to go up against Imperium.
yeah. I mean, the
Oh,
Imperium
it
stuff's gonna
seems,
be
it
good.
seems.
Yeah. On Raw, it certainly was implied heavily that Imperium is next. Judgment Day will probably find its way into that mix at some point on Raw. I'll be honest though, this whole thing, the tag team, when the tag team titles were still involved in the Bloodline, I thought I didn't like that, but it did keep a problem that they now have to address from being addressed. With Sammy and Kevin were drafted to Raw. They are a
Mm-hmm.
Raw team. Yet, because they hold both titles, they are allowed to, and I suppose required to, appear on SmackDown to defend those titles. I haven't seen a single SmackDown team. In fairness, SmackDown has a much weaker division than Raw.
Mhm.
But I haven't seen a single SmackDown team that looks like they're in contention for these titles. Right now, again, it's Imperium and then it's Judgment Day. SmackDown, I mean, the heel teams on SmackDown are what? There's a Hit Row,
Mhm.
um, Pretty Deadly. Are the Viking Raiders on SmackDown? Probably.
I thought they were on Raw. I'll
They might
confirm that
be.
real quick. The Viking Raiders, a team with a demoted cool tag team name.
they everyone who is upset about the Viking Raiders, remember they were the Viking Experience at one point. So this is not a demotion; it's actually a promotion from Viking Experience.
But
But
they were also War Machine, and that's actually a cool name.
yeah, well, I mean, and their names were cooler too. Hanson and Rowe versus Eric and Ivar. Like, yes, this demotion from War Machine, but
And
better
yes,
than
to
Viking
confirm, they
Experience.
are on Raw, by the way.
Oh, they're on Raw. Okay, so I can't even name a third heel team on SmackDown. So the tag division being strong right now, I think is a bit not real.
Hmm.
Just being completely honest with you, um, I think SmackDown's got a really weak tag division. A lot of baby faces, which is good. New Day, Street Profits, the Club. Um, but that's it. That's who they got. And Raw really has about two teams as well. When you think about it, two real like teams. You got the Chad Gable, Otis, that stuff, and the Maximum Male Models. But mostly you've got Judgment Day and you've got Imperium. Uh, so I thought, and I thought this for a while, that they were going to somehow, King Solomon this thing for Sammy and Kevin, but they didn't do that. And I don't know what they're going to do, but they have to figure out soon because this muddled booking, I mentioned this on the preview, is hurting Sami Zayn. And I mean, I get that he wasn't in their plans. He's not someone that they were like, we must protect Sammy, and that's fine. But they should try a little bit to keep this momentum. Like they should just let it go away. And so they really do need to figure out their tag division. And now they have the opportunity, whereas before they weren't even trying because it was always going to be Sammy versus Roman again. You know what I mean? But I also think that that means that now that they are no longer doing that, they have to look at the facts that their division, while consisting of a lot of teams, does not feel like a fully fleshed division, and part of that is because of the unified title. Um, that's just a fact. Now, maybe they'll create a SmackDown specific tag team title. I don't think so. I don't think there's enough teams to do that. But
They'll
I
bring
do
back
think
the
that
WWE Tag Team Championship.
yeah, exactly. That's my thought exactly. But I just really don't. I think that there's an issue there. Same issue they had with the heavyweight title. And while Sammy and Kevin are more than willing to be on both shows, it's muddying their characters up. And we saw this even a little bit in the lead up to Night of Champions because they were building to Imperium and Judgment Day before Night of Champions. So they were building two separate feuds, both on Raw, while feuding with a SmackDown team of Roman and Solo. But
And
so
it is acknowledged here that they are somewhat free agent likes because they can go to both shows.
right, and again, that whole thing is stupid because why wouldn't they just be free agents? That's an actual distinction they made this year that people have used. Von Wagner has appeared on multiple shows. In case anybody wanted to know about that, um,
Hmm.
Ali has just appeared on NXT tonight while we are recording. So he's using the free agent. So like the free agent is a real distinction. So if you needed to make them free agents, they should have just made them free agents. Um, but again, we're getting into the draft being stupid, which is not the main takeaway from this match. I don't want to get
Even
into that. The main takeaway, of course, is the ending with Jimmy Uso telling Jay Uso that he was going to do what Jay should have done a long time ago.
which is definitely true.
Yeah, and he took out Roman Reigns. They together
Awesome
took out
super kick.
Solo by accident, but they hit him not once but twice with the super kick. Um, Jimmy to Roman, and that ultimately ended up ending the match as well. And that's why Roman lost. But yeah, we talked about this before. Roman needed to lose to set this up We needed Roman needed to lose to get to the end of the bloodline. They didn't want it to be Cody. Don't really know why, but they didn't.
Hmm.
Um, this match that we saw and the story that they told, frankly, did not require the world titles. The world titles, in my opinion, are window dressing at this point for this feud, which is a shame, but it is what it is. We did get there, and I'm glad we got there. We're clearly going to see the battle lines of the Usos versus Roman and Solo. Solo's going to have to choose between his brothers and his cousin, and I mean, I think there could be some really interesting stuff, and I think this could even revitalize Roman Reigns, because I mean, if we're really looking at WrestleMania for him to drop these titles, and it seems very likely that we are now, be
So
it to
long.
Cody or Jay or whomever. Um,
Gunther.
it won't be Gunther. I think that what we'll see though is when if that happens and Roman is alone, if we get this almost like Mad King Roman, the tribal chief without a tribe, but he's on a tear anyway by himself for a few months. Um, I think that could be really compelling. I think if he loses the title earlier, and he becomes the challenger at WrestleMania 40, which I think would be the more interesting way to go. They're not going to do that, but it would be interesting nonetheless. And again, he's by himself and he's more aggressive and he's more deadly, a little bit more shield, right? A little more like silent killer. I think that could all be very interesting, and this is all a way to get there. So I thought this was great. I thought that, although I will say, I see a lot on wrestling Twitter the cinema tweets referring to the bloodline, and I want your opinion. You're a movie guy. They're being ironic, right?
With every time when I see Jay turn
Cinema.
around, this is cinema.
Yeah, this is
The
cinema.
um with Sammy hitting the chair, this is cinema.
Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah,
Um
that's
I
irony,
actually
correct?
I think it's so weird because it is wrestling, and I do think this bloodline story in particular really does it really does play well. All right, cinematic is not the word, but definitely narratively, it's weird. So I think some of the beats of this story, if you will, are legitimately like, again, I don't want to use the word cinematic because I'm thinking of a big screen with tight
Yeah.
camera angles and a soundtrack. But in a terms of being entertaining, like I guess
Oh, yeah, of
it's
course
not
it's
as catchy.
entertaining,
This is
but
entertaining. There are some legit beats, especially Sammy's turn, um, Sammy's
yeah.
true turn on the Royal Rumble. That really hellacious match they had. Well, not hellacious, but very emotional match, if you will,
Mhm.
at Elimination Chamber. I think some of it does warrant it, but I guess
I don't know.
for
I
this for
think
the
that
sake of a Gen Z millennial take on things to spit it, we'll say it's fine. Because
I don't know.
again, there are
I
some cool
mean,
spots, but it's just
sure,
it
but the
just so stretches.
performances,
It's
yeah, the
because
performances of the actual
the
performers,
actual the acting
yeah,
of the promos.
yeah, none of that is cinematic. And the beats again, I think that
I
unfortunately,
will say one thing though. I think the Kevin Owens, he makes some legitimately great points, some really good writing from what
Kevin's
he
very good.
says.
Yeah.
So he's the most. If we
Jay
want to
is
use the word
also, I think,
cinematic,
very good. He's getting better and better. Jey Uso is.
yeah, and
I think Jey Uso is actually a better actor than Roman Reigns, by the way, which is ironic given which one of them is attempting to do the Hollywood thing. But
and that's one thing we love or at least I love talking about, like who legitimately has the acting chops in wrestling. We all
I
know
feel
number one is
Jay is
Batista.
acting, and he
Oh
Jay
yeah,
overacts a little bit. He
Jay's
overacts a
a little
little
bit.
bit, but for the most part, I think Jay is actually of the all of the people in the story. I think he's playing his role and acting the best. Just again for my money. Um, but I get the cinema things. I see a lot of that. I'm like, it's not all right. It's not cinema. And again,
This is cinema, and
unfortunately,
you put Martin
since
Scorsese's
WrestleMania,
picture in
yeah,
there.
man, since WrestleMania too, a lot of these story beats have missed. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, like again, that's what
all of
happens
the
for
beats
taking so
through,
long.
yeah, all of the beats through Backlash missed. You know what I mean? That's just a
I do.
fact. None of that was interesting. But I digress. Another important, obviously the ending. We've talked about that. What that means going forward. Battle lines are drawn. I think
And,
we can't sit here and say for sure when it's gonna happen because we don't know Roman's schedule. He may be at Money in the Bank. He might not be.
well, did you
You
see
know what
they
I mean?
released a schedule just a
His
couple hours
schedule.
ago? Yeah, with him, WWE, assuming they weren't lying like they did with what was it, Fayetteville, South Carolina, where they
Yeah.
did advertise him, and Roman was like, "Oh, I'm not going." We just wanted to say we messed up, but but yeah, I have it literally right here. Again, assuming they didn't, even though they literally did this before with the
Card
South
subject to
Carolina.
change, of course, but that's fine.
True, true. So at least as at this moment, tweeted by WWE 9 hours ago, and Paul Heyman specifically,
Okay.
we have dates here for. They're not allowed. I can literally name them off. We have him coming to SmackDown on the 2nd of June. That's this Friday. 2 weeks after that in Lexington, Kentucky. Wow, a house show in Cincinnati that Saturday.
Okay.
Then SmackDown and the SmackDown before the SmackDown before
Money in the
Money in
Bank.
the Bank in London on the 30th, which we will cover, by the way. Stay tuned for that. Money in the Bank, he will be there. Then he'll be in New York City for the SmackDown after Money in the Bank. And then 2 weeks after that in Orlando, another super show in Mexico. And then the SmackDown from okay, so he will be at the week before SmackDown in New Orleans, but he
Mm.
won't be at the SmackDown before SummerSlam, according to this.
Right. So you see now, what is his match
So
at
only
SummerSlam that he doesn't need to build it? You know what I mean? Like, so
yeah,
it's really hard. My point being that it's really hard to predict the Bloodline's future because Roman is a moving target. In terms of what he's gonna do and when. But I do obviously again we're gonna see a version of Usos versus Roman and Solo, and then that's going to diverge into some other story via Jay and Roman. Maybe Jimmy gets the first crack at Roman, and that's what gets Jay in there. Maybe Solo turns on Roman. There's a couple different ways it can go.
and
But
that's
the
what you
next
wonder
step,
too. And
yeah, but the next step I think is clear, and they're going to build to that probably for Money in the Bank, but who knows? And that's the tag team. The sides are drawn. Roman and Solo, Jimmy and Jay. They did a lot of in this match and in the lead up to this match that we saw a lot of like you're not the greatest tag team. The Usos aren't the greatest tag team. The Usos saying, as the day one, we're the tribal. You said
there
that
ain't
I'm
no
the
day
tribal
one
chief
no
for day
more.
one. Yeah,
There
all
ain't
that
no day
stuff.
one no more.
Yeah, so they've made it very clear that this phase of the story is about the Usos reclaiming the mantle as the best tag team in their family, which is true, by the way. Uh, there's a lot of tag teams in that family, a lot of very famous ones, and I think the Usos at the end of their career will have twice as many accolades and twice as much acclaim as any of them. So yeah, I think that's the direction that this headed. And we also talked about Sammy and Kevin needing more challengers and they need to figure out the tag division. I'll just say this though. Sammy appearing at this show was shocking. Some would even say it was hypocritical, given his past comments about never performing in Saudi Arabia. Obviously, the politics around Syria have changed, but this was, and I'm saying this not as disrespectful, but just as factual. This was some A class sports washing of
And
Saudi Arabia.
you're referring to the
Sammy
entrance of
specifically.
Zammy going in his. I don't want to be what's the we're gonna just say
You're saying he's
religious.
speaking. He's speaking Arabic.
Well, he's speaking Arabic to the crowd, and he also wore.
Oh yeah, he
Um,
wore traditional garb
yeah,
as well. But because they did a bunch of it, beautiful Jeddah, and the falcon is. I know the falcon is the national bird of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They told me that on commentary instead of calling the match, and that was all gross, and that's all the same stuff we come to expect from the PR machine that is WWE trying to make us fall in love with Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and it doesn't
more
work.
than
It
the
has
U.S.
never.
government.
Yeah, and it's never worked. It's always been the point that I dislike that other people dislike. It's why some people don't cover the show. It's why people don't talk about the show, or do talk about the show, but only in a negative way. It's stuff like that, like talking about Michael Cole telling us about the Falcon. No one wants to know about that. But Sami Zayn, when he came out and he said, I mean, basically, he said, I looked up a rough translation is, we have an Arabic champion. We're in Saudi Arabia. we're going to do this in Arabic. And that was what he was saying. And he introduced himself and Kevin Owens um, after saying that in Arabic. And the crowd went absolute bananas. They went bananas for Sami Zayn the whole time. So it proved to me, I don't understand, clearly didn't understand the Syria Saudi Arabia bit. Like I clearly don't know what was going on there, but because those people loved Sami Zayn, absolutely loved Sami Zayn. That's number one, and number two is Sammy was able to show.
He's a Henry Kissinger for Syria and Saudi Arabia.
I think he would take incredible offense to that comparison. I believe, but I will say that
Just being the peacemaker, you know.
normalized Henry Kissinger was not a peacemaker. We won't get into that. This is a wrestling podcast. Um,
Then I might have mixed that up. I
yeah,
thought he was a peacekeeper with the.
no, he was the Secretary of State, so he probably. Anyway, we're getting too deep into politics here.
Who?
But he
All I
did
was saying
normal.
that I was just he's. I thought he was a peacekeeper. That's what I meant. I
Gotcha.
must have used the wrong
That's
historical
all right.
figure.
My point is that he, meaning Sami Zayn, really kind of normalized to American audiences to Saudi Arabian people. And in fairness, that is something that gets lost in this kind of discourse. Like the folks who come to these shows, they're always hot for these shows. They want to watch the wrestling and they want to watch Bianca as well. You know, they want to watch the women, they want to watch the men, they want to watch everybody. They want to see WWE. They love WWE. Um, they're not the ones, meaning the fans that were watching in these arenas, are not the ones who are committing human rights violations. In fact, sometimes they're the very people who are having their rights trampled. By the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But the way that it was presented and the way Sammy humanized the entire kingdom and everybody in that arena, I was like, I mean, it made me again. I was like, oh, awesome to see Sammy in front of a hot crowd. Like we thought Montreal was big. This was almost as big, in terms of reaction. They loved him and Jeddah, and it really did kind of soften the whole experience. I think the entire card, it softened all of the propaganda from before, all of the commercials and stuff. I didn't have to watch them because I have premium, but other people had to watch the Saudi commercials. If you didn't
Like
have
me.
premium, yeah, like Matt had to watch the Saudi tourism commercials. It was it really did, and so I mean, I don't know if that was his intent. He might be very upset at me saying that, and that's fine. Certainly can do that, but it was very effective use of sports, and I know sports air quotes because it's professional wrestling, but it's very effective use of sports and entertainment to gloss over some very hard truths, and it was very effective. I think that this was probably the most effective WWE's been since its first show at doing that, which I do think again not really a WWE goal. I don't think WWE cares if it does this, but it's definitely a Saudi Arabia goal, and so they definitely got their money's worth out of this main event alone, in my opinion.
And are we going to see this trend of, WWE superstars being from a foreign country? And like we saw with Clash of Champions with Drew and all that love there,
Oh, they do that anyway.
Puerto
They always do
Rico,
that.
Bad Bunny, and then, really showing put the world in world wrestling entertainment. I believe there's going
Yeah,
to be an India
yeah.
there's going to be a premium event in India, so Jinder Mahal is going to get
They
another
gotta
title.
they gotta heat up in this year. That's gonna fight there. They're gonna just heat up in this year. They can get Ginger back to that world title scene just for the India show. Um, um, no, but yeah, they're an international company. They try to showcase their
Mhm.
international stars. I think they'll continue to do that. They've also done some work. Granted, this was very special circumstances, but Shinsuke Nakamura returning to Japan to
Mhm.
wrestle the Great Muta in his retirement tour of the Japanese territory of the Japanese companies like New Japan, All Japan, etc. Um, so I think WWE is trying to build that global uh, feel, and they're definitely doing a lot in the UK. I mean, this is they used to never have UK shows. Now they've had their own branded pay per view and one of the big five. I mean, I know there's a big four, but Money in the Bank is bigger than
Mhm.
Survivor Series. I know you can't just remove Survivor Series, so I call it a big five. But Money in the Bank is clearly one of the biggest shows they have because of that gimmick. And so that's in London. I mean, come on. The James Bond theme they went for right before they showed the commercial right before the main event. That was corny. Don't love
Oh
that.
yeah,
But I mean, other
right
than
on the
that,
brink. Quick thing. I texted you how Matthew McFadden should
we
be the
talked
next.
about
Oh
it in
yeah,
succession. Mhm.
perfect leeway for that. Um.
Check that
Okay.
out. That went out Monday
Yes.
or
Yes.
today. Yeah, yeah.
Check our Succession review of the Succession finale. But as you were saying, yeah, I guess honestly, with what you're saying, and to bring it to a head, I think it's just another way just to show off the corporate giant you are, get your money, show off, hit all your audiences. For I think it is definitely admirable. You're trying to have everyone be represented fairly and show how diverse your company is. And I think all that was just a way to show, you know,
Mm. And one more
look
thing, I
at
know
who
we
we
have
are.
to. I do. We have to get to other matches, of course. But one more thing, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, WWE put on 3 women's wrestling matches.
Yeah,
That's more wrestling that from women than were on AEW's Double or Nothing pay per view the same weekend.
unbelievable.
WWE brought women to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and featured them more prominently than AEW. I think anyone who's listened knows that Alex from our panel couldn't be here today is more of the AEW guy than I am. But that needs to be corrected. If
Yeah,
AEW,
come
if
on,
anyone who
Tony.
likes AEW or God forbid, works at AEW, right? Not God forbid, but we'd be so fortunate to have an AEW employee listening. That needs to be like pronto corrected because they went into a place where women cannot drive and featured
Right.
women more prominently than you did in Las Vegas. So, like, just throwing that out there um, for all of the bad that comes with these Saudi shows, there is some sliver of good if you squint real hard. And so I think that that's something to consider if you're trying to feel good about watching it, like we are since we're covering it.
Absolutely. One last thing on the Bloodline story. And
Mhm.
if we're really going to extend this, I really hope it completely ends at SummerSlam. But if we're really going to extend this all the way till WrestleMania in April 2024,
You
which
might.
is 10 months away, at least add some new characters in it. And by saying that, are we going to see a Rikishi show up? Are we going to see there is a fourth Uso, right? There's four of them. There's
Maybe I
obviously
don't know if
Jimmy
they're all
J.
wrestlers.
Well,
Jimmy
yeah,
J
that's
and
what I'm saying.
Solo,
That's what
they're all Usos. Like
and
they were Kishi's children.
yes, and there's another one. Just confirm let me just confirm that really quick. Whether, you know, it doesn't have to be a wrestler per se, but as long as someone's a figurehead, here's a lot of money for it. There's actually five children. There's five
Yeah, but you don't
children.
want to just throw kids into this. It needs to make sense. Rikishi could make sense because there's about to be a fight between Jimmy J and Solo. Those are his sons. So Rikishi coming in to try and play peacemaker to get taken out by Roman for interfering in tribal chief matters. I think that could be a compelling story beat. I think throwing 3 random Samoan children into this just because they're related to somebody would be a bad move. But Rikishi makes sense because again, he
Mhm.
wants his kids to stop fighting. We don't know that, but you presume he would want his children to stop fighting in the story, and so it makes sense from a narrative perspective that he would finally step in and say, "Jimmy, Jay, Solo, your family, you're my kids, you're my bloodline, and I won't have you guys tearing each other apart." And then have Roman come in and do something dastardly, maybe to turn Solo on him, or maybe to cement Solo. Maybe he makes Solo do it, cementing Solo as the big bad. Uh, that he's meant to be. So we'll see. I think that Rikishi could get involved. I think it would be very interesting, and I think it would freshen up at least a few weeks of television,
At least. You don't
which I
have a
think is
lot.
good.
So
Yeah, which will be good. Yeah.
and we don't see Paul Heyman turning at any point, right?
No, I think
He's
Paul
been kind of
Heyman.
quiet the past few weeks of this narratively.
Yeah, I think Paul Heyman is going to end up. Well, depend if Brock's retiring soon, he may get back together with Brock for one last ride into retirement. But I could see Paul Heyman making
Wiseman.
Solo Sikoa a Paul Heyman guy when this is all said and done. I could see Solo getting Paul Heyman's treatment. I could see Solo retiring Brock Lesnar. Ultimately, I think they
That'd be
see him in
cool.
that regard as well. And so I could see, Paul sticking with Solo instead of Roman, and that could be his betrayal of the tribal chief. Because they'll all end up betraying him. But that's neither here nor there.
I hear that, man. I hear that. So moving on, Seth
Mm.
Rollins became your new world heavyweight champion
Mm-hmm.
with a pretty solid match against
Yeah,
AJ Styles. Tell me about Seth Rollins. Seth freaking Rollins, I should
Seth
say,
freaking Rollins.
being the new champs.
Well, I'm gonna call him just Seth Rollins for now. It sucks that this went first. Obviously we know why it went first because we were doing the bloodline exploding at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But this if that didn't scream this is the secondary title, I don't know what does. Um, Obviously Seth won. We pretty much knew he was going to win. He's the only Raw superstar competing for Raw's top title. Um, I think he'll do well. He did well on Raw. He's heading in. I don't know. I wish I was more excited about. I mean, this was the title growing up, right? You grew up same era of wrestling as I do. We both had the fake replica belts, and we both had the World Heavyweight Championship belt. Fact, that's a fact. Every kid I knew growing up had big gold as their replica belt, not the WWE title, not even the spinner, unless you had a lot of money. If you could get the spinner and you had a lot of money and got like the real replica belt, that was different. But for people who were kids when we were kids watching wrestling, big gold was the title that we had on our shoulder when we did the trampoline wrestling. Don't try this at home and all that stuff. But I just think that it's a real shame that I get why they did it. And I do think that if anyone can make this mean something, it's Seth. I think he can have enough good matches with enough people if they can find enough challengers, which I'm not sure they can, to rescue this. But the match honestly was good, but not great. It wasn't like
Mm-hmm.
mind blowing. It was not just it was very good, but it wasn't like I kind of was
Mesmerized.
hoping that they would have this classic because they wanted to heat up this title, and they definitely tried. And there was definitely moments where I was like, oh wow, but for the most part, this was just a very very solid opening match, which is great. It's what they needed it to be, but it didn't make me believe that Seth's like a real champion. Um, I mean, even on Raw, Ray was like, you're just holding a title. I'm the real champion. I'm the top champ. She said, I'm the top champion around here. That we're ignoring she has the SmackDown Women's Championship on Raw, but I'm the top
When is
champion around
WWE
here.
just gonna say brand split doesn't matter? Just kidding.
Well, AJ came out and did a match, so I think it was yesterday. But yeah, I don't know. I'm down on this match, not because the match wasn't good; it was very good. I'm just down on everything around this match. I guess if that makes sense. If you
Yeah,
haven't watched the match, go watch it for sure.
could have been
Um,
better. Simple as that. Could have been better.
well, yeah, the build up to it could have been better. Just the whole deal around it could have been better. The match itself was very good. Will be entertaining if you watch it, but everything before was just to me so many missed opportunities, just so many confusing bits. And so that's unfortunately where I landed on it. And it did bring down my enjoyment of the entire thing, like the entire package. I enjoyed it less, which is a shame because the match was pretty good.
Right. And again, you just didn't know the direction they were going with this tournament and everything like that. And also what is Seth's schedule going to be as
Yeah,
well?
he's still going to be around more than Roman. I said that last time. I maintain that. So in terms of will he even be around? Yes, he'll be around enough. I don't think it will feel like he's not around. They will make it far less obvious that Seth isn't in the building.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my opinion.
Yeah, I guess it is just it's always just going to be an awkward vibe with this special event, any of the Saudi events, and maybe that was what it turned into be.
Maybe that was part of it. I really do think it was the build though, more so than where it was taking place.
Mm-hmm. And again, you have two generational superstars who are supposed to be something, you know, they're Hall of Famers and two Hall of Famers who are still in great shape. You just wish there was more. What are you
Hmm.
gonna do? Now, this match that was boring, I didn't like whatsoever. And I didn't real at the time when we did the preview, I realized how much I hated this aspect of the feud going into this match as soon as I was watching it. but the fact that you had a broken arm match and all he did was this throughout the whole
Okay.
time. What am I supposed to? Is that for the kids? Like, honestly, is that for the kids that are watching
Well,
this and want to see a
no.
babyface
So
proceed?
they screwed themselves because on Raw, and I thought it was really well done. It was overacted because Cody is cheesy, but it was very good.
Man, I fell down to my knees.
He Triple H was like, "Your arm is broken. We need to get it checked out." Cody said no, and Triple H said, "I know why you don't want to get your arm checked, because if we check it, you won't be cleared to compete." And
Hmm.
essentially, that was true. And so finally, Triple H said, "You know what? We won't check it. You take it into your own hands, right?" And that was that. And then they announced, like, heading into the show, like, "Well, we had the team look at it, and Cody's arm is broken," which we knew. And so when you say, was it for kids to see, it was for kids, but not in the way you're saying. It was for kids because they thought that their audience couldn't put two and two together, that Cody's arm was broken. They thought they needed to visually show the cast and the sling. Like, oh, Cody's arm is broken. The whole
My,
story was Cody knew his arm was broken, but he wanted to fight Brock, so he refused to let a doctor look at him because he knew that if a doctor saw his broken arm, they wouldn't let him wrestle. And so they kind of shot their own story in the foot, which is really upsetting because it was a decent enough story, especially, given that all of this has been very cartoony and very 1980s, which already has limited mileage, of course. But yeah, so I think that was the only mistake, though. I thought the match was actually interesting. Not their best bout, but it was fun. It was funny in a lot of different moments, and it was, had enough action to give you a reason to watch. So I liked it.
yeah, like it was fine. I didn't hate it. I just, I just want to see them, have a slobber knocker, as the great Jim Ross used to say. But
I
guess
mean, they
they'll save
kind of
that for
did.
Money
They
in
were
Bank.
they were definitely going at it pretty hard.
True, but I
And
wanted also see
yeah,
like it to get vicious and like people throwing each other in the mats. I want to see it bleed again. I don't know. Maybe I'm
well, I'm
asking too
sure
much, but
that
I
the
just
last
wanted to see.
match, yeah, I'm sure the last match at SummerSlam, I assume SummerSlam, not Money in the Bank, will be a stipulation, be it like in a cage or something. Like, I'm sure they'll have a stipulation to really give you that kind of visualization at the very end.
Yeah.
But for what this was, the second match to tie up the series, I thought it was good.
Okay. I hear that. I hear that. And yeah, so you expect this, if not Money in the Bank, they'll end it in they'll end it in SummerSlam.
Oh, I very much expect it to be SummerSlam.
And maybe we see Cody compete in the Money in the Bank or something.
I think that they're going to use that broken arm to keep Cody off of Money in the Bank officially. Again, I think I might be on the money. I think that Brock might be in Money in the Bank, um, as a free agent, and Cody takes him out, and that's how we end up. But maybe not. Again, they are 1-1, so they don't need that. It could just be they both go their separate ways. And then Cody's like, I'm finally announces at Money in the Bank that I'm cleared to compete. And at SummerSlam, I want Brock Lesnar or something like that. Like, he will be, of course, he will be in London. He has to be. But I'm not necessarily certain they even want to put him in the match, because if they put him in the match, people are going to want him to win the match because they want him to take the title off of Roman. The same thing with like when Daniel Bryan was in the Royal Rumble.
Right.
Uh, they don't want to put him in a position where they want people to cheer for Cody to win something that he's not going to ultimately win. And so I think that they can use the broken arm to keep him out of that match. That's my personal thought. But
All right, we'll go with that. How about Asuka and Bianca? Asuka goes out on top. She ends Bianca's year-long run, and now she's the champion, Ryan. One of your favorites is the new Raw Women's Champion. How about that, Ryan?
yeah, this wasn't as good as the WrestleMania match. Uh, That's okay though. It happens. Like I predicted, they wanted just the three-peat at WrestleMania. They didn't necessarily care about Bianca any further than that. This was definitely the right call. It makes Asuka a pretty solid heel as well. She used the mist. Still,
Right in the face.
yeah. So I think that ultimately, I think that this is definitely a good call. I'm excited to see. what comes next. My
What
issue
do you
is that
think it
they're on the
is?
same show. You'd have to assume
It seems that
it's them again.
all of our predictions and all of our analysis post this show really banks on the brand split, if it is a thing or not.
Yeah, I mean, who else is there on SmackDown right now? Nobody, obviously, because
Nobody.
they took Bianca and Asuka from Raw, who were feuding on Raw before WrestleMania, and just moved them to SmackDown to feud over the Raw Women's Championship. So they quite literally did not bring a new challenger into this at all. I guess SmackDown has I don't know. I don't know who SmackDown has. So my guess is for now it's
You
gonna
want me to
stay.
name off right? You want me to say some names?
No, I think that for now they'll keep it Asuka Bianca because that's the only thing that makes sense.
Oh man, again and again and again and again and again. But again, do you think that's a bad thing?
Yeah, I think it'll be boring. Like I said, their second match was already not as good as their first match.
Right.
They are tied up, right? It's two 1-1. So a rubber match at Money in the Bank is like not out of the realm of possibility. But I do think the biggest women's match they have right now is Rhea and Bianca. They've made it so that if they can get their SmackDown Women's Championship to the show she's supposed to be on, then they could do that match at SummerSlam, and I think that would be a big marquee match. But they're not there yet. I could see Trish dispatching Becky, or well, we'll get into the Trish strategy, Becky Lynch match, but I could see a way that they could get Trish into a program. But again, Trish is our Raw superstar, I think. But maybe Trish wins Money in the Bank. I really don't know. I'll be honest with you, I don't know. Their women's division, they really did just switch women's divisions. They just took the SmackDown women. Well, in fairness, not even because the SmackDown women's division before WrestleMania was Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. That was the whole thing. So they've done a very, very little to help themselves with this. Because SmackDown really does have Bianca and Asuka, I feel. Now that's bothering me. I'll look that up real quick while you get into the next match.
And the next match is Becky Lynch and Trish. We have Becky Lynch losing this match, all thanks to somebody named Zoe Stark interfering in the match. Stratus hits the stratification, and Trish wins in Saudi Arabia. Tell me about this and what future does it lead? And Zoe Stark, how significant is her involvement?
Well, very significant for Zoe Stark in that she's a brand new NXT call up. In my opinion, and I've actually written a little bit about this for Last Word on Sports. Uh, she is probably the second best call up overall of this class. This class was a very weird call up class. Some folks didn't make sense to get moved, and they did get moved.
Like
Other
who?
folks, well, Von Wagner is a free agent. I don't understand why they did that. They moved up JD McDonough, who
Mm-hmm.
is talented enough to be sure. He's done a lot on Raw already, but there was people who were way more established than McDonough. Indy Hartwell was the NXT Women's Champion. She kind of felt a little bit like an NXT lifer, and I think they moved her up just to create another faction for Johnny Gargano, which is fine. But again, just a lot of very strange call ups in that regard. But there was three that I would say the crown jewel of the call ups that they weren't mid or bad. They were genuinely smart call ups made at the right time for three very talented people. Would be Grayson Waller on SmackDown,
Yeah.
Zoe Stark on Raw, and then Pretty Deadly also on SmackDown, a tag team. And so Zoe Stark is a phenomenal wrestler, in my opinion. I love watching her wrestle. I've loved watching her on NXT. On her way out, actually, she got drafted, as you know, to Raw, but on her way out those last 2 weeks, she basically just had a match with everybody. They just said Zoe Stark versus, and they just put a woman in the ring
Everybody.
because they wanted every woman on their roster because they had a vacant title thanks to Indy Hartwell and Roxanne Perez, a vacant title. The NXT Women's title has had a lot of vacancies and a lot of weird kind of stuff happen with it over the last 3 months, really. And so to heat everybody up and make everybody look like they could be legitimately contenders for this title, they all fought Zoe Stark. Because Zoe Stark is that good. She was able to have a good match with the entire NXT women's division for the most part. The main players, not like the bit players. She, all the main people, Tiffany Stratton, Cora Jade, Roxanne Perez, etc. They all had something with Zoe because Zoe made everybody look good. And so I think Becky and Zoe is a good fit. I think pairing Trish with Zoe is a good fit because it gives people a reason to care about Zoe Stark. For people who have not watched NXT, like yourself, you said someone named Zoe Stark. For me, I was like, oh, Zoe Stark. For you, like, all right, well, so her name is Zoe Stark. They told us that, but what does that mean? So for folks who are not familiar with her from NXT, being with Trish gives us a reason to care. Like, oh, okay, well, this Trish is a Hall of Famer. Trish is doing all this great heel work. Zoe's with Trish. I care a little bit. It gives the tag team match that they need to have with Lita. That makes sense now. Becky and Lita versus Zoe and Trish. So I think
That's what I
all
was
of that
gonna
works
say.
well.
I
Yeah.
see that as the major rumor going into this. That
Oh,
Lita will return.
absolutely. Lita's going to return, and that's going to be, Zoe is going to be a part of that mix, at least in the beginning. And then where they go with it is where they go with it. But to step back away from the ending with Zoe Stark, although, just last thing, if you didn't watch the match, watch it. And even if you did, fast forward to when Zoe gets involved. That move, it's her finishing move. But she
The
obviously usually goes for the
the
pin.
Z36.
Yeah, but instead the way
Oh,
she
sorry,
hit
sorry.
it,
The Z360.
yeah, the way she hit it and then it spun to be tossed her in the ring. It was just so seamless. I was really impressed by that. It was like a tiny thing, but I thought that was really cool looking. Anyway, the match itself, a lot of people didn't like this match. I thought this was a fun match. I mean, Trish Stratus. I know they made this a talking point of the feud, and I don't think that they meant this on purpose, but this is just true. Trish Stratus is not as good as we remember her being. She's also not as
Are you
good.
saying most overrated superstar?
No, 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 no. God no. Um, she was leaps and bounds better than anything WWE had produced
At the
ever,
time. Oh,
ever
ever.
at
Okay.
at that time. Yeah, ever at that time. Um, she isn't as, I mean, besides the fact that she's almost freaking 50 years old. She there isn't anything like she was, even when she wasn't almost 50 years old, she wasn't as good as the talent that WWE has in the women's division now. That's just a fact. Lita is the same way, and Trish is better than Lita. You know what I mean? So like, they're the two best by leaps and bounds for their era. I shouldn't say by leaps and bounds. There's other folks, Molly Holly, etc., who are also very good, but they were the two best very visibly. But they were still nowhere near as good as the folks nowadays. But they wrestled a simple match. She did excellent heel work in the ring. I mean, thank you, Trish, on the back of her gear. It's just hysterical. When she took her little scarf off and just had "Thank you, Trish" in pink on the back. I thought the match looked cool. The Kill Bill outfit, all that was great.
Yeah,
I
that
thought it
was
was,
awesome.
I thought it was
Kill Bill
wrestled
outfit
really
was really
well,
cool.
and it was cool because it didn't feel like it sometimes feels like Asuka's. No offense to Asuka, but hers looked weird. The velvet blue, and I thought it looked cool for her character, but like it was very clear that she was wearing that because of the venue, right? She was wearing that because they were in Saudi Arabia. But Trish used to wrestle with a little bit more clothing, actually, surprisingly. And like again, they looked great. It didn't look like a Saudi thing, like at all. And I thought the match was simple and effective. Trish was the cheating heel. Becky was the fired up babyface. Introduced Zoe Stark to a larger audience. I think it was perfectly done. One of my favorite overall segments of the show, actually, because I was into the match when it started because of the build. They kept me where they needed to keep me during the match when they wrestled. And at the end, they gave me something interesting to carry the story into the next few weeks.
No doubt about that. And that's going to be very interesting to see as things move forward. Now we had Gunther and Mustafa Ali go at it, and Gunther beat that ass. Tell me about that ass
Oh,
beating.
but he didn't. Not like I predicted. I think that might have been match of the
Okay,
night.
you really think so?
Ali
I
did
mean,
great.
well, I thought Gunther was the one who was in control for most of it, and
Ali
somebody who
did
was
great.
resilient like Ali, that was cool. And you know, I know we got some kickouts in there, but
Yeah, he did great. He hit both. He hit both those splashes. It was weird because like again, it never looked like Gunther was going to lose.
you're
Like
right. Yeah, that's what I'm really
I didn't
feeling.
buy any. Like maybe one time did they have a near fall. I was like that would have been interesting, but like most of the times, like even the near falls that Gunther did, and he had near falls. He did kick out at two a couple times. I was
True,
like, well, he's
true,
going to
but
kick
he
out at
really
two
did dominate at least at the beginning,
at the
especially once he
beginning,
hit
of
hit
course.
his chops
But
and he pushed
I think
back.
that it
But
was
I
good.
guess maybe it's like that vision of just seeing him getting beat so early. Maybe you're just
Well, he
shooting
definitely played the
yourself off
underdog.
there.
He
But
played the underdog,
yeah,
of course. Ali did, but I think he played a very good underdog, and I think he also got showcased himself quite a bit. I think they gave him a lot of time to work with, and a lot of offense to work in, a lot of creative ways to defend against Gunther as well. You
mhm.
know, and so I really do think that this was better than most of the other matches. I mean, thinking of match of the night, what else is there? Maybe it's probably Seth AJ is the only other one, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those two. And so, because again, Asuka and Bianca, in my opinion, did underdeliver compared to what may have been match. I mean, I wasn't on that. And a lot of people said that was match of the night at Mania. I went with Charlotte Rhea. I think that was the best match of WrestleMania because Charlotte is my, my friend and my girl. And so, but yeah, I think that again, a genuine case that this was the most interesting and most entertaining in ring match of the night. Couldn't have cared less about it going into it because it's Ali. He wasn't going to win. I didn't even think he'd get to hit Gunther, so I was pleasantly surprised about that. But yeah, there was no build. This was ice cold, but the Saudi crowd was pretty hot for Ali, which maybe that's why they didn't build it. They knew that they're going to have the Saudi crowd cheering for Ali and cheering for Gunther,
Right.
just because they were seeing them. But yeah, and it got Ali featured role in NXT. He's going to be going. It seems like he's going to go after Wesley's North American Championship, which is it's something to do, right? Those would be very good matches because Wesley's been consistently the hardest worker on the WWE roster. The last however 200 days he's been champion, and so Ali, if he can do what he did with Gunther with Wes, that'll be freaking awesome matches on NXT. So
And
also that ends well.
and speaking of NXT, quickly, you saw Baron Corbin making an appearance. It looks like he's going after the NXT champion.
Yeah, I don't love that it's Baron Corbin. I think that there's other people who need it more. Karrion Cross comes to mind. He could play a similar role. He's much larger than the current champion, as is Corbin. So it would be a similar match, a larger heel versus a smaller cruiserweight babyface and Carmelo Hayes. But I think that Cross, he has that NXT lineage as a former NXT champion. And also Corbin, no offense,
No one likes
he's
you.
he's not. It's not that I don't like him, but he's not going to be rehabilitated. Corbin is going to be a mid card guy, maybe upper mid card guy. That was his ceiling before. It's his ceiling now. They have a chance to reheat Cross and maybe get a main event run out of him. That was the plan, and it's never come to fruition. So if it were me, I would throw him down, not Corbs. But it is what it is.
All right, I hear that. And now for a definite squash, to say the least. Rhea
Excellent.
defeats Natalia. What
So
do you
good.
think of it with the help of Dominic Mysterio playing
So
the
good.
distraction
So good.
in this?
So good. Like I said, we made a joke that the Crown Prince really loves to see Natalia. I think because she's been on a lot of these shows. I definitely texted you that. I think I said on the show. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
She's often on these Saudi Arabian shows, and they kind of messed with that expectation a little bit. Because usually she gets the match. Like I was kind of thinking it'd be like Zelina Vega. Like she'd have a brief moment where, oh my God, she's gonna do it. Lock in that sharpshooter. Be like, oh my God, Natalia's gonna do it, and then Rhea dominates the end of the match. But this was so much better. Um, it made Rhea look awesome. Made Dom look Weasley, and I mean Natalia looks approximately the way she looked when she got there. So that and there's not. I mean, in a perfect world, everybody looks better, but since
hmm
that's not the world we live in, I think having Natalia look the same, but with no loss in Natalia, you've made Rhea look even better and Dom look even better. I think that's all you can ask for in a wrestling match or a wrestling segment. Not really a match, was it? But I would
No.
like to point out that not to keep bringing up AEW, but there's a group there, a very talented tag team called
I
the
was just
Acclaimed.
about to ask this. I was
Yeah,
looking it up on Twitter right now, so I know what you're going with this.
but
Tell
yeah.
us.
So Max Caster does a rap on the way to the ring, a freestyle. Usually, it's topical
And
about his
what's and what's
opponents,
and
about
what's that
culture,
and what's that
and
team called?
the Acclaimed is the name of the tag team. It's
With Daddy Ass?
yeah, it's Max Caster, Anthony Bowens, and yeah, Billy Gunn is Daddy Ass.
Daddy.
And so they came out and Buddy Matthews, Rhea Ripley's surprise actual partner in real life. That's not
hmm
Dominic. Um, was running down, Buddy Matthews and his team. And when he got to Buddy, he said, "Your girl's being, are you like your girl's being cucked on, or you're being cucked by some kid named Dominic, right? Being
Yeah.
cucked on TV by some kid named Dominic, something to that effect." And then Rhea Ripley responded on Twitter tweeting at Dominic, "Looks like we got over in two promotions," which I thought was a really good, which is
Oh.
I thought was a really good response to that, because like, yeah, you put my name in your mouth on AEW television. It's because
Literally said Dominic.
I'm the biggest thing in wrestling. Like, her and Dom are so hot right now in wrestling that even AEW had to mention them. You know what I mean? And so I thought that was very interesting. And but again, it's not the man. I mean, Ray is a very good wrestler, but it's not the matches that are giving them this credibility. It's part of it, but part of it is stuff like this, and you have to
Yeah,
remember to
amazing
do stuff like
character
this.
work.
Yeah, you have to do stuff like this. You have to have this dominance of Rhea Ripley and this absolute weaseliness of Dominic Mysterio. And so sometimes you draw the Natalia straw, and you have to go out there in front of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and just get worked. And but it's for the greater good. It makes the show more interesting. It makes some of the wrestlers more interesting.
Right.
It'll make an actual match with someone like Bianca or Charlotte again, or Becky or Trish. It'll make that all the more, all the more fun and entertaining, because we had this stop along the way where they absolutely destroyed Natalia. So I thought it was great. Again, you can't say it was like match of the night or anything. It wasn't, but it was very fun. I enjoyed it. I laughed. It was kind of funny. And that's all you want to laugh a little bit when you watch wrestling. So
That's all you could do
yeah.
nowadays. That's all you can do. And there was some legit good stuff. Is there anything else in the world of wrestling you want to mention? And you have any early money in the bank predictions?
I mean, we're seeing now who's going to qualify. We've got Ricochet and Shinsuke Nakamura thus far, the only two qualified. Um, I don't believe either one of them is going to win the Money in the Bank ladder match.
No.
Um, I would love it. I would love for it to be LA Knight or Drew McIntyre, maybe. You know me. I'm just trying to. I want Drew to get back on TV, and so
Yeah,
whatever they
this
have to
is
promise him. But I don't know. I don't know, because whoever wins it. So the last few winners have been Austin Theory.
yep. And what's he been doing lately?
Well, he's the U.S.
I know he's the
champion, but
U.S. champion, but his push seems to get lower and lower. And what John Cena apparently said to him both off screen and on screen is true. You suck. No one cares. You have
you
to do something
suck.
great.
But
And paraphrasing.
yeah, let me get the
I'm
list up
serious.
here, and I apologize that I don't have these memorized, but
And
or
take
at
your
least the
time. But the
last
Austin
few.
Theory, it's not working right now. That dude is coming off
No,
as just some
it's not
some
working.
he's coming off as just some pretty boy who's the champion right now. No connection with the audience. John Cena was right. He was spitting facts. And your match with the great one did not levitate you, man.
Yeah, so
He
I'm.
has to lose the title and hit the humble juice. The selfie stuff was okay, I guess. It's very Gen X, Gen Z, but this guy is just some pretty boy right now.
Well, I don't think that a pretty boy is the problem.
No,
I,
but a
you know,
pretty
I
boy with no character is.
Well, I think Pretty Boy can be a character. I mean, look at not. I mean,
Well,
there's
he's
there's
doing a bad job with it.
the charisma gap between these two people is wide. So please do not come at me for saying this. But Rick Rude's character was I'm hot and your wife
And he
wants to
wasn't even
bang
that hot. No
your
offense.
wife. No, but I mean,
80s hot.
for the time period, yeah.
Sure.
But his thing was, I'm hot and your wife wants to bang me. That was his entire character. That was his entire character, and he said it
Yes.
outright, essentially.
And we saw some very cancelable stuff.
Yeah, but he was super over. He was, I mean, he's a fixture of WWE lore. He's a legend. He's a legend.
Right.
I mean, that theme song, like the whole presentation, it was just perfect. So if he's going to be cocky frat boy Gen Z, then do it for real. Don't the character now. The issue is the character is I'm like the next John Cena, right? Right. That was his character for a while, and it
He was
doesn't.
trying.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It's not. It's not a good character. People didn't want the first John Cena. So the next one, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
no, but so I pulled this up. So Baron Corbin won it in
Hat.
2017.
Hat.
Braun Strowman in 2018.
Oh,
They both did not win their championship match.
fizzled out, to say the least.
But they didn't win. I'm saying they cashed in and did not win.
Oh, I know.
2019
I'm just
Brock
saying
Lesnar
now,
won.
though they are on the
Uh,
irrelevant poll right now.
I mean,
Well, I guess.
Braun's tag teams. He's doing his thing. The Miz won it off of Otis, who then won the match to lose to. I mean, the Miz won it in 2021. He cashed in successfully, but he didn't win the match. 2021 was a fluke year because again Otis got it when AJ dropped it. I actually just rewatched that match. It was very very funny because of how bad it was. 2020 then Big E was next. 2022.
That
Um
worked for
yeah, it
at the
worked
time.
ish. It kind of worked a little bit. And then Austin Theory. So we're looking here. We've got three winners of the last five, or three successful cash-ins of the last five.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those successful cash-ins did not actually win Money in the Bank. They took the briefcase off of Otis. Not Otis, not Otis Doja, you know, his Chad Gable protege wrestler guy. Otis, like the, you know, oh yeah, Otis. So this gimmick needs some real star power to it, which is why the folks, and I get why they're saying it, but the folks were like, let's give it to Logan Paul
Oh no.
or Dominic Mysterio. I don't believe, I mean, Logan Paul has a better shot than Dominic Mysterio, in fairness, but I don't believe either of those guys, for as good as they would be as heels with the briefcase, I don't see either one of them actually winning the title. And
Logan
that
Paul, man.
in
You know, if
lies
I'm
the
not a wrestler,
problem.
I would hate his guts so
Yeah,
much. It's like, why do I bother doing this career? If it just shows if you're just a TikToker, you could just take my shit away from me.
but Logan is a very good wrestler.
True, but no one cares about your prime or I know you can
He cares about
inspire
his
the
prime, dude.
oh, that's literally the people I've literally heard people say that is the worst
Oh,
electro
I'm
right
sure it
gig of
is,
all time. It's
but
shit. I
Logan
know you
wants to
inspire
prep that
people
shit.
between the
Yeah.
ages of 10 and 20, 10 to 21, but
I
like
don't see the problem. I
I don't
think
know, man.
again,
It's just like the optics. At least with
Logan
Bad
as
Bunny, we know what he's going for. Like it's
well, no,
truly a
but
one
Bad
off.
Bunny,
But
yeah,
but
but
Logan,
Bad Bunny is not
like if Logan
again.
Paul was a WWE champion, you think that'd be a good thing?
You don't want
What
to
does
hear
that
this,
what does that say? What does
but
that
Bad
say
Bunny
about
is not
WWE?
even half as good as Logan Paul.
Of course, and he has more
Logan Paul is a
important things,
good
and
wrestler.
he knows himself.
Well, yeah,
But
he's
like
also making millions as a musician. Why would he want to be WWE champion? But
exactly, and
Logan
Logan
Paul is good at
Paul
this
exactly. So why can't he just stick to a normal schedule? That's all I'm
because
saying.
he
Like
just
what's
like what's
got to
Roman Reigns
promote
do? What
Prime?
is Roman Reigns doing?
Hey, he comes at least if there's if there's at least he's coming showing up for the next 10 weeks.
Yeah,
I'm
for the
sorry,
next 10 weeks.
he showed up for 10 shows in 2 months.
Yeah,
Logan Paul will show
Logan
up for
has
two of
Logan
them.
has absolutely done a stint. He didn't wrestle, but he's absolutely done a stint of like 5 shows, 6 shows in a row. I don't. Again, my point though is not so much that he should be champion. I think he would be an excellent Money in the Bank holder in the same vein as Dominic Mysterio, as they would be insufferable heels and they would be very funny holding that briefcase. But ultimately, they would lose when they cashed in. And I think that that's the issue. And then when you add in the fact that Roman Reigns is not getting cashed in on, You know what I mean?
Doesn't seem to
Like
be. Listen, if Logan Paul like has a legit schedule, then fine. But
we're
if
not
he's
his
just gonna show
schedules.
up
He's
once every 3 months,
Logan is making tons of money. I'm sure he has other things going on. But I don't think he should be WWE champion. I think the whole or world heavyweight champion. And again, that's the main issue is that whoever wins this briefcase is going for the world heavyweight championship because the WWE championship, the undisputed thing is off the map. Roman is taking it away.
by the
And
way,
that
did
just
WWE
makes
acknowledge that they truly are a combined title now?
no,
Because like
not really.
technically,
They
you
haven't
could
really
technically
announced
have
it.
three. You could have three
No, I think
world titles
they
now.
are combined, but Roman is holding both of them.
Okay,
And so to me, the gimmick hasn't worked in a long time.
Money in the Bank.
But it is one of the most exciting gimmicks they have. So a lot of people saying get rid of it. I disagree entirely because
I do
people
too.
get very excited about Money in the Bank. You just need to do it right.
Yeah,
And this year is going to be hard to do because this year you cannot have. I mean, honestly, this year, as much as it doesn't make sense, Cody should win it. And for some reason, not cash in at SummerSlam. Maybe Brock attacks him after the match. And he says, well, I could fight Roman at SummerSlam, but I've got one last showdown with, whatever. And then he can even say, like, I'm cashing in against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. Like, he can even do it right after he wins. Pre-cash in. They've done it before. Rob Van Dam did it. Braun Strowman did it. John Cena, I think, did it. Like, people have done that. But he's the only guy who makes sense. And it makes sense because that he's on Raw, but he wants the SmackDown titles, so he uses Money in the Bank to get to it. It doesn't like the LA Knights would be awesome if it was him, but
just too bad they don't care
He's not
about.
beating Roman Reigns. He's just not. Gunther's not beating Roman Reigns. Like he's just not. So they could do it and then go after Seth, maybe. But I think more than likely, just give it to. There's one guy who makes sense. I'd say you just give it to him, which is real boring, and it takes away all of the fun of Money in the Bank. But
Yeah, we'll have to see, man. I think if you're gonna do it if you want to have the chicken shit heel, definitely give it to Dominic because at least
he's not
wish
going
you
to
were
win.
there.
He does that. That's use. It's wasting a
But
year.
it's if we're going to look at Money in the Bank as whoever gets it is your next champion, then yeah, you have to pick somebody
We have
worthy
to
enough.
because of
But
the
if we're
last five, only three have only two have successfully won the thing and cashed in, and then the Miz got his. Oh, he stole it from Otis. But so of the last five, only two winners have cashed in successfully.
well, you could say is in the last
And it
three.
was, by
What's
the
it? The
way, it was
last three.
Brock Lesnar was
The
one of those
last
winners
the
who
last
didn't need it.
two. I mean, it's up to them to decide what they want to do, but
Of
I
course,
mean, the
but I
last three
just to
Royal
me,
Rumbles haven't been haven't won.
yeah,
You
but that
have.
was different. Everyone was treated as serious competitors.
Mhm.
They were seen as. I mean, Dominic is not real. He's we had our succession talk. Dominic is bullshit. He
Ha
is
ha
a
ha
nepo
ha.
baby. And seriously, I mean, he's
Oh
actually
yeah,
fits
he
the
didn't
role as
even
well.
do a
Yeah,
developmental He
he's
didn't
a
even do a
nepo
developmental.
baby, and I don't mean in real life. He's very talented, but his character is like he's Rey Mysterio's brat son. That is his entire character.
Yeah, he
That
didn't even go
he's
through a developmental
well,
territory. They just let him
that's
in.
real. That's the real world. We're not talking about that part. I'm talking about just character wise. Not Dominic Mysterio, the performer, but Dominic Mysterio, the character on TV. His two characters are sleeps with Rhea Ripley, is a brat, is Rey Mysterio's brat son,
Yeah, yeah,
and
I know
so
what you mean.
he's not serious. He's not a serious challenge to Seth. He's not a serious challenge to Roman. Giving it to him will give me a laugh. It'll give you a laugh. It
Mhm.
will not result in anything particularly interesting with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Again, at least Logan Paul, you could see him outside chance winning against Seth Rollins. You could see WWE being crazy enough to be like, he could be world heavyweight champion
So
for
he
a
could
few
call
months.
Jimmy Fallon to show off
Yeah,
the belt.
exactly. You could see it. And so suddenly you've got that same brat heel with the shot at winning. And that's what I mean. But the problem is the shot at winning is only coming at Seth Rollins' expense because they're not taking off Roman Reigns. And that means more than likely a SmackDown superstar is not winning Money in the Bank. So that means more than likely we're not seeing LA Knight, right? We're not going to see AJ Styles. We're not going to see any of them win this match. Edge, Rey Mysterio, like that's not who's going to win this match because that's not who they're building toward. They're building toward Raw. So
Hey man, listen, if they could pull it off, and for the sake of seeing wrestling Twitter just explode on itself, if Logan Paul becomes a world heavyweight championship in WWE, I'll take it in that sense.
secondary title. Who cares?
But I guess that's the one thing with wrestling. Who cares?
David
Because
Arquette
clearly they
held
bring
that
it up
title.
there.
David Arquette held that same title.
I
So
guess so. And look what happened. It literally bankrupted
yeah,
the company.
that's a very good
So
point, Matt. Very good point.
well,
Historically, didn't end well.
so we'll see. And maybe I mean I don't know. It's weird. I just don't think he's deserving. But you do have to stir the pot every once in a while. And I'll take the my hesitations
You're
for the
going with
sake of
Dom though,
changing
huh?
things.
That's who you think they're going with?
No, I don't think he deserves it either. I just don't think Logan Paul, the celebrity who shows up when he wants,
Huh.
should be the Money in the Bank. Because I again, you would there's no WWE superstar who signed with the company who, in a non kayfabe way, will say, "Yeah, this is pretty BS." I'll lose out to Logan Paul, the guy who made vines while I was working at some high school gym in front of 10 people, getting my ass beat to get called up. And then
Yeah.
I just have this guy come in with his
Celebrities are good
prime
for
water.
the celebrities are good for the media, in my opinion. I don't think he should win. And because I still don't think he'll win the title. I think they need a real contender to win this title
Yeah.
and cash in successfully. Because it's been too long, and unfortunately, the only person that describes right now is Cody Rhodes.
Mm-hmm. And
So
you want to do something more than just everybody taking a turn holding the world championship. So
yeah,
we will see how this all unfolds. Well, thank you again, Ryan. Night of
thank you.
Champions in the books. Let us
Yes.
hope these stories progress. And I would guess in about 4 weeks from now, we will do the Money in the Bank preview and see how we'll see what a difference a month makes.
Yep. See who's in that match. See if we can find the Logan Paul entry.
Logan Paul. Oh man. I'll do it. I will also do it for podcast algorithm sakes. I think if you do if you hashtag Logan Paul, it's probably in the at least hundreds of thousands. So
Well, hey,
anything's on the
I
table
think he
for
could
that.
win the. I think he could win the Money in the Bank. I think it wouldn't be the worst idea.
All right. Looking forward to see what happens. Thanks, Ryan.
All right. Talk to you later, Matt.